Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1186B, and today's date is January 24th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Trump's Truth Bombs Are Pushing the Elite's Propaganda Out into the Open. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Paul Craig Roberts. You can see this on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, or you can come over to the x22report.com site. Just scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there, and you can play it right on the site. Or you can go to newssentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right. You'll see the video there, and you can play it right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we realize that Obama was pushing the TPP while he was president, and this deal, this trade deal, and we know that Trump was campaigning that he was going to completely get rid of it, and he did sign an executive order that pretty much got rid of the TPP. It wasn't being voted on anyhow because Congress wasn't really looking at this and saying, ooh, this is a great trade deal. But he got rid of it like he promised, and many of the nations around the world were protesting against it because they were going to implement a court which sat above the government, which took away the sovereignty of each country. Plus, they were going to try to bring in workers from other countries and pay them at their country's rate inside the United States, which would make it very difficult for a U.S. worker to get a manufacturing job. So this trade deal was a complete disaster, was set up completely to benefit the corporations and not the people. And we can see around the globe, many of the nations that were protesting the TPP, they decided, you know something, if the U.S. is going to be out, we're going to be out. And what is happening right now is that the China proposed free trade area of the Asia Pacific, well, it is now most likely going to be in focus for the other countries where they're going to be looking at this saying, maybe we should join this. Will the U.S. join this? I don't think so. But we'll have to see what Trump does. I don't think he's going to go down that route. Now, we see that Trump, well, he ordered a media blackout at the EPA, and he is barring staff from awarding any new contracts or grants. He doesn't want people tweeting inside the EPA. And what he's doing right now is he's going down, and it looks like he's going to be doing this to each agency. He wants to see the contracts. He wants to see where the money's going. He wants to understand what is going on here. And with, any business person, they want to know what their business is doing. What are we spending money on? Is this a waste? Is this necessary? And this is exactly what he's doing. So he put a halt to all contracts and everything at this point. We see that Trump was out there once again, and he was in this meeting with reporters, and it was completely off the record. And he's saying that he didn't get the popular vote because the illegals were allowed to vote, and they voted for Hillary. And of course, the corporate media is running wild with this. They're saying that this is completely fake, phony, and false. He's just making this stuff up. But something very interesting is that Hillary got the popular vote with about 2.9 million ballots. And we know that Bev Harris proved that you can manipulate the voting. And we know during Obama's reign, there were illegals coming over the border because he signed a memorandum. So you need to look a little closer here to see what is truth, what is lie. And of course, you can't really find out the truth because, again, we don't have an ID-based election system. So anybody can come in and vote. And this was proven time and time again where people came in, said, this is who I am, and they just signed in someplace else and they were able to vote. But what we can do is we can look at the Center for Immigration Studies analysis of the Census Bureau data. And when we look at this, we can see from 2009, when Obama took office in January, up to the point where he left office, we can see how many illegals came into this country. Now, from 2009 to 2015, they have the records, and it was 2.5 million illegal immigrants, which turns out to be about 300,000 to 400,000 a year that come into this country. And remember, when they came in, they just jumped over the border because of his memorandum, said, you are now a citizen. We're going to pay for your clothing. We're going to pay for your housing. We're going to put you on a bus. We're going to ship you off to a city, and you'll be taken care of. You'll get your working papers and everything like that, and your family can come up. Now, why wouldn't this individual vote for the Democratic Party? I mean, they're giving them everything. They allowed them into the U.S. So when you add these numbers up, it's 2.5 million, and the last year, 2016, the numbers haven't come out yet, but we can estimate it that it was another 300,000 to 400,000, which would be 2.8 or 2.9 million. Now, very coincidentally, the number of votes that Hillary got were 2.9 million, over and above Trump. So he does have a case here. And it's very interesting. Now, of course, the New York Times is out there, and they're out there saying that Trump repeats lie about popular vote in meeting with lawmakers. Of course, the other corporate media controlled outlets are all saying that he's lying. And what's happening right now is that he is dropping truth bombs, because what he's doing is he's calling out the corporate media. He's calling out the elite. Now, remember a couple days ago where he talked about the crowds at his inauguration, and people went off on this completely. He was doing that for a specific reason, because he wanted to call the corporate media out on their fake news. Because remember, the corporate media put out a picture showing everyone arriving at the inauguration. So he decided that he was going to tweet a picture of what the crowds really looked like. And boom, he just got them in a lie. Another truth bomb, which is pushing the propaganda out into the open. This is exactly what he's doing. Each time he does this, it's for a specific reason, because how else are you going to show the corporate media is lying? You need to have facts and proof. And this is what he does. He waits a little bit, lets them carry on, lets them continue with their lies, and then he shuts them down. So in that respect, he is pushing all the propaganda out in the open. And we can see the corporate media, the elite, they're freaking out. They don't know what to do about this. So all they can say, he's continually lying until the facts come out. Now, there was an interview with an NBC journalist and Kellyanne Conway where she used the term alternative facts, and everyone's making fun of it. Like, oh, there's no such thing as alternative facts. It's either fact or not fact. Well, remember in the days when the church was out there telling us that, well, the sun revolves around the earth is the center of everything. Wasn't there an alternative fact where someone said, well, I don't know if that's true, because from my experiments, I have an alternative fact that says the earth revolves around the sun, and the earth isn't the center of the universe. So when she said alternative facts, I guess it was a nice way of saying, your lies. We have the facts and you have the lies. Now, of course, they're making a really big deal out of this. They're making fun of it. And once again, Trump, by showing the picture, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, to shut them down completely. Now, China is moving out of the South China Sea and moving out of their area, and they are exploring new areas. In a deployment not seen in 7 years, 3 Chinese warships, including a guided missile destroyer warship, well, they embarked on a tour of the Gulf Arab states for the first time since 2010. And they are sailing in the Persian Gulf. And the 3 Chinese vessels arrived in Qatar. And we can see right now they also visited the Saudi port of Jeddah. And at this point, they are spreading their wings and moving into different areas. Now, what's very interesting about this is that China's Navy regularly tours the world and ships patrol off the coast of Yemen and Somalia as part of international anti-piracy operations, but visits to the Gulf Arab states, where both the U.S. and Britain have naval bases, well, they're a little less common, but they are doing it right now. We see Xi Jinping. He is giving a speech at the UN, and he said something very interesting, that nuclear weapons, they should be completely prohibited and destroyed over time to make the world free of them. And I kind of agree with him, because at this point, what is the reason to have these things? The only reason we get into world wars is because the central bankers, they want to keep their control and power. So instead of building these nuclear weapons, instead of invading these countries and having regime change for the central bankers, why don't we just get rid of the central banking system? Why don't we just live in peace? But again, the elite, the central bankers, they definitely do not want this. We see that China, well, they're telling the U.S. to act and speak cautiously, because we know that Sean Spicer was out there saying that the U.S. has vowed to defend the international territories in the South China Sea. And again, this is the South China Sea. It's almost like China coming into the Gulf of Mexico saying that we're going to defend our international territories in this area. Instead of saying that we vow to defend, I think what the Trump administration needs to do is, we're going to have talks with China. We're going to discuss what's going on. And maybe we can come up with an agreement instead of posturing for a showdown over this area. Now, we can see that China, well, they're taking this very seriously, and allegedly they're placing ICBMs in this area. Do we know that for a fact? Not exactly yet. We see Ukraine's President Poroshenko is out there, and he is rejecting U.S. President Trump's proposal to consider reducing the penalties on Russia, because Poroshenko says that we need to keep the sanctions, because this is the only way to keep Russia at the negotiating table over the crisis in eastern Ukraine. So actually they're using the sanctions as a tool to blackmail Russia and to try to make them do things they really don't want to do. And Ukraine wants to keep the sanctions because they want to force Russia into doing what they want. Now, the British government refuses to confirm a missile failure launch off the coast of Florida. And we can see that there was a Trident missile that really didn't do what it was supposed to do. And the ballistic missile was test fired off the coast of Florida last year. And Sir Michael Fallon, the country's defense secretary, refused to go into operational details about the Trident test. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that the Obama administration asked the Cameron administration not to comment on this because they were worried about something, because there were other problems like this in other missiles. So the part that went wrong is the part where the U.S. has proprietary technology in the missile, and it didn't work as it was advertised. So Obama, well, he put a gag order on this, and that's why nothing was said, and the missile test actually failed. Now, out in Libya, we understand the U.S. went in and bombed the Islamic State. That was the story. Well, now the story is changing. And you could see why this is changing, because we have a new administration in office. And we can see at this point that most likely they're being asked what is going on here. And they might be caught in a lie, because now they changed the story saying, well, we went into Libya because this was linked to the Berlin market truck attack, and that's why we bombed that area in Libya. Now, once again, that is also a lie. We know that was a complete false flag. They went into Libya to push back the other governments that are trying to gain power, probably from General Haftar, because they want the UN-backed government in place, and they don't want the people rising up and getting rid of that government. Most likely, that is going to be the truth, and we can see right now they are scrambling to figure out and explain away why the U.S. bombed Libya, and they're just coming up with story after story after story. Now, the White House right now, and Trump has said this in the past, they are open to cooperate with Russia in Syria. Now, again, those elite, the neocons, they don't want cooperation with Russia. Their entire mission is to demonize Russia. Actually, back in 2014 in the NDAA, it actually forbids the Pentagon from working with Russia at all because of the civil war in East Ukraine. So we can see right now that they don't want to have anything to do with Russia. And Trump is on the other side saying, well, we should really talk to them. Instead of starting wars, we need to talk to all these diplomatic leaders and work out a solution. But again, the neocons, the elite, the central bankers, they don't want talk. They want war. Now, we're getting more information about the bases that the U.S. is building in Syria. And a source in the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is the moderate rebels, they just renamed them, and he wants to remain anonymous, confirmed that, yes, the U.S. is building a large military base in the village of Tel Bedir, located 35 kilometers from the town of Halsaka. And we can see right now they're saying that this is a very big base. And this can hold about 5,000 soldiers. U.S. airplanes will also use this base, and its primary objective will be to facilitate the operation to liberate Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor. And we know that Russia right now is bombing Deir ez-Zor, removing the Islamic State from that area, removing the moderate rebels, removing Al-Qaeda. Is this really what the base is going to be used for? Well, most likely not, because the base will probably be used to carry on the war in Syria and Iraq, mediated by the forces of the Syrian Kurds as allies. Now, the Pentagon is denying all of this. They're saying, no, there's no bases there. Please look the opposite way. We have nothing in that area. It's completely inaccurate. And we can see right now there are reports coming from all different sources that there are bases in Syria. Now, very interestingly, we see the rich and famous, they are building doomsday bunkers. Antonio Garcia Martinez, a 40-year-old former Facebook executive, well, he decided to buy his own little section of a secluded island in the Pacific Northwest and load it up with generators, solar panels, thousands of rounds of ammunition. He says, I keep a helicopter gassed up all the time. I have an underground bunker with an air filtration system. Larry Hall, CEO of the Survival Condo Project, well, he turned a decommissioned 15-story nuclear warhead silo into an underground fortress and sold off individual condos to America's rich and famous. Silicon Valley's Reddit CEO, Stephen Huffman, who admits that he went so far as to get corrective eye surgery, not for convenience of appearance, but because if the world ends, getting contacts or glasses, well, that's going to be completely impossible. And they're expecting an apocalypse. Now, it's funny because we were talking about this many, many years ago, about how things are going to rapidly deteriorate and how the economy is going to completely implode on itself. And we're going to see riots. We're going to see individuals that won't be able to handle themselves because a lot of their wealth will be destroyed. Even Bix Weir is out there saying that all the fiat currency that is in the bank, the pensions, it's all going to completely disappear. And we are going to go through pain because we already see the budget director that Trump already appointed. Well, he's already saying this debt level, it can't be sustained. I mean, he's saying it now. So what we're seeing throughout the world is there's a huge war going on between the elite, between the people that don't want the globalists, and as this gets to a climax and both sides continually fight, the economy is going to be brought down one way or another. I mean, if the globalists, if the central banks bring it down, it comes down. if Trump says, you know something, we need to restart this whole thing. This is not going to work. We can't raise the debt ceiling. We can't do anything. We need to cut, and everyone's just going to have to deal with it, because what these individuals have done in the past, it will not work. We can't move forward until we take a couple steps back, and it's going to be painful. Because doing this, we need to reset. And here we are back to that word reset, resetting the economy. And we can see right now, people are not going to be able to handle this. People are going to freak out. This is why the rich, the famous, they're preparing for something like this. This is why the bankers right now, well, they're selling off their stocks. They understand what is coming here. And remember, the central banks, they hold all the cards right now. They control the economy of the world. They can make it go up. They make it go down. They can crash it by snapping their fingers. They're still in control. And if these individuals like you, me, you, and everyone else doesn't do what they want, they'll make life completely miserable. Unless we all get together and decide, you know something? Let's bring down the system. Let's get rid of the debt. We'll take on the pain as long as we can get rid of the central bank. We will reset, and we'll do it without them. That's the direction we need to go. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.